Okay, so we're looking at the overview of your plan. Now, the data flow diagram in this case is pretty good. It's going through each of the major steps that we identified within the beginning part of our design and everything along those lines. It's going through and it's using the proper symbols to say which is input, which was output, which is the computer having to decide something, which is selection or that diamond for the question type thing, and it shows the different processes as it goes through. However, you want to be able to state without a shadow of a doubt before you've even left the planning process that you have definitely considered every part of the diagram that could be taken slightly differently or could be read slightly wrong than what you intended in the purpose. So what I've gone through is I've gone through each of the parts of the diagram and I'm just thinking about anywhere that is slightly ambiguous. So it just says generate 5 random cards. That doesn't tell me how it's going to do it. It doesn't tell me anything additional to the process. I've used success message where I haven't actually come up with what the success message is. Similarly for the incorrect message and percentages display and even the end game sort of statistics that are going to be displayed, I haven't really specified enough to say that, do you know what, I've got a thorough understanding, I've shown it without a shadow of a doubt, everything is in that diagram. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that I need to clarify. A bit like we did with the project at the start, where we went back and we asked ourselves those questions. Here we go, let's make sure they're on a separate portrait page. I'm going to classify these ones down again. So I'm going to make sure that I've got an extra layer of detail on these ones. Now, let's close that one. I've gone back to this one because for generating the 5 random cards, it might be a good idea that I have just a small little diagram that I can show this one off with. So I might go back and create a smaller data flow diagram that shows exactly what I mean by generate 5 random cards, so I can programming it a little bit easier as well. A bit like when we were doing the overview and reading through the specification and putting through our plans together, the more detail you have at this stage, the easier it's going to be to transfer it into, well, first pseudocode and then into your actual program. I would suggest spending your time doing these ones. It could be a case of you've written the diagram within a controlled assessment lesson, print a copy off, go home with it, write notes all over it, annotate it, say what you would want to do to improve that diagram. Is there anything that is slightly ambiguous that you could be taken a different way or read a different way? Because as much as you're in your head at the moment, and potentially I can understand exactly what you're trying to do, the end goal of this is to make sure that anybody who picks up this document knows, yes, you've definitely understood the brief, you've definitely understood how you're going to plan a solution, and do you know what, I've got no problems with saying that they would come up with a brilliant solution that would solve that problem. You don't have to just make diagrams. I think I've done it for the generating the 5 random cards. You could write them as paragraphs. So if I'm going back to the point where I'm discussing what statistics I want displayed, actually having the maths there is going to be more useful to me. I'm going to go through it within this video and I'm just going to keep adding to the extra detail for those ones. Okay, so at this point I've gone through everything. I've got my diagram that shows a thorough understanding, and I've got any sort of queries that I might have underneath. Now you're going to want to make sure that you tidy this bit up as well as along those lines. I'm also going to give it a heading, and one of the things that I would suggest at this point is, if you think about it this way, up until now you've got everything apart from the pseudocode. Actually print it off, take it home, highlight anything that doesn't make sense, because it's your extra planning. One thing I'm going to do to make sure that it's a little bit easier to read for any examiner, especially considering now that this document is getting quite large, is I'm going to go to references and add a table of contents. Now there are two automatic ones, but I do prefer the one that says table of contents at the top. It's going to allow you to keep track of every part of your document, and it's going to make it easier for the examiner when they have to mark it to actually find the information that they're looking for, to prove that you've got a thorough understanding and that you've gone through this very systematically. So everywhere you've used a heading 1, it'll come up as a main heading within the contents page, like understanding the problem, and every time you've used a heading 2, sort of slightly underneath, it'll be just slightly indented, just to make it a little bit neater. One thing I would suggest is any time that you update any of these ones, so if something went onto another page, you'd have to update the table. So it might be worth doing the contents page right at the end. It's completely your choice. Anywhere that, a bit like the overview of the problem, is starting on one page and ending on anything, I'm also not quite sure that I like. It's just overview of plan. Let's put data flow diagram in there as well. Be specific. Please make sure that when you're doing this one, I know I've written in size 14, but it should be size 12, just to keep the size of the text down and to make sure that you're not filling the page with just large text. It's all useful information that you've gone through. It's just made the filming of it a little bit easier for this one. Anytime you want to update, just update the entire table, and it'll do it including any title changes and everything along those lines. Good luck, and over to you.